a subset of self-management. Self-motivation pushes people to meet and exceed expectations because they know what emotions they want more and less of. They have a good guess on what will make them feel fulfilled, and they try to accomplish that constantly. Self-motivated people continually look for ways to improve their emotional state. They know what makes them tick, emotionally and otherwise, and try to set themselves up for success. You can supercharge your ability to do this by noticing when you or others complain. Complaints indicate problems, which are opportunities for improvement. When you find these, think about ways to solve the problem, and when you can make those solutions happen, get to it. Social awareness. People who are socially aware can read the room and understand the emotions that groups and individuals are likely feeling. At a group level, being socially aware means understanding the power structure and organization of groups, along with the emotional impact of those structures and the emotional currents that flow between one person and the next. It helps us interpret situations. Understanding that the secretary is happy to help her boss but is tired from overwork is part of social awareness. It's also social awareness to know that she's more replaceable and therefore less important, and that both she and her boss are influenced by that dynamic. It sounds like an overwhelming amount of data to process, but it can be simplified to asking why people have certain behaviors with one person versus another, and then finding the dynamic that causes it. Observing and interacting with people helps develop this skill. Whenever you see an interaction that puzzles or intrigues you, you can ask yourself why they're saying and doing what they are to try to get a better grasp of relationship dynamics. The better you get, the easier it will be to find the right things to do in social situations of every size and type. Obviously, this is a massive oversimplification, but it begins with asking why something is happening and what unseen or unconscious elements are causing it. Ask yourself these questions, one at a time at first, and then shortly they will become instinctual habit. It's not an easy task because you can't focus on one factor definitively. Each situation is different, and you must be adaptable in discovering why people feel what they do. Going through this checklist will assist you in reading people's emotions in a way you may never have considered before. How might your thoughts and actions be misinterpreted? What are other people's primary motivations, and what unspoken, underlying motivations might they have that they and you are not even aware of? Consider people's built-in biases and life circumstances that give rise to certain emotions. What is their background and upbringing? How do people display their emotions, both positively and negatively? How are emotions displayed in different ways? What emotions are they likely to be feeling and why? What is the purpose for what they're saying? What is their baseline emotional state and preferred interaction style? By being aware of these factors, you increase your emotional intelligence because you're able to read people more accurately. And just as important, you can respond to them in a more calibrated manner that leads to fewer negative reactions. Notably, this process can take a while. Exactly the difference between responding and reacting. At the most basic level, emotional intelligence is knowing the range of reactions to any given statement or circumstance and who might respond differently and why. If you insult someone's mother in a serious manner and with a serious face, one reaction would be anger and being offended. You can expect that reaction a majority of the time. However, what are the other possible reactions, and what accounts for the difference? People might assume you're joking, laugh out of confusion, or ignore you because they didn't even hear what you said. Emotional intelligence will allow you to connect with people on a deeper level because you understand them implicitly without their saying anything. You will just get them. This is what many people interpret as chemistry and rapport, and you'll have it in a seemingly effortless manner. You can see how emotional intelligence starts from yourself and then transfers to others. In the previous chapter, we focused a lot on values and deeper intentions, which inform how people would like to act. Here, we're paying more attention to emotions, which tells you how they will more naturally and instinctually act. Taken together, we're learning how to analyze someone's rational and emotional sides to both predict their behavior and also interpret it. A final and important piece of emotional cues is to get better at understanding the subtext of a situation, which is similar to social awareness.
Hello listeners, this is Russell with Newton Media Group, and I want to thank you for the time you've spent listening. Let me ask you a question. How often do you experience low energy or fatigue, erectile dysfunction, low sex drive, anxiety, brain fog, or even just have a hard time making decisions? These are all symptoms of a hormonal imbalance. And here's a stat for you. 1 in 4 men over 30 have hormonal imbalances and are low in testosterone. This condition is often misdiagnosed. I'd like to introduce you to our sponsor, Let's Get Checked, a company with a mission to make professional health testing easily accessible. Their fast, affordable, and confidential at-home male hormone test kits help you take a measured approach to your health and measure your hormone levels from the comfort of your home. Even better, Let's Get Checked customers can get 20% off by using this URL, trylgc.com/NMG. That's N as in Newton, M as in media, G as in group. It's really easy. Here's how it works. Go to trylgc.com/NMG. Choose your test online and it'll be delivered to you in discreet packaging with next day delivery. Activate your test online and collect your sample one morning. Return the sample using the prepaid shipping label provided. Once your sample arrives in the lab, results will be available from your online account within 2 to 5 days. You'll get results on 5 hormonal levels: testosterone, sex hormone binding globulin, prolactin, estrogen, and your free androgen index, all without ever having to go to a doctor's office or a laboratory. I've recently experienced my own kind of brain fog and low energy. I was very interested in my hormone levels, and I can't think of a better way than was offered with Let's Get Checked. Everything needed was in the kit with step-by-step instructions. It only took 10 or 15 minutes for the whole process. This testing isn't just for men who think they're in a funk. All men should be testing their hormone levels on a regular basis. Let's Get Checked Labs are CLIA approved and all data is completely anonymized. Get 20% off at trylgc.com/NMG. That's trylgc.com/NMG. N as in Newton, M as in media, G as in group.
That's not what I meant. Communication is much more than words that we speak or hear. Studies have quoted figures stating that from 50% to 90% of communication, the message and emotion we get from others, is based on nonverbal or unspoken signals, starting from Mehrabian and Ferris in Inference of Attitudes from Nonverbal Communications in 2 Channels in 1967. Add that to additional communication based on subtext, context, implication, and inference, and you'll almost wonder what impact our actual words have. Whatever the case, what we think we are communicating is often overshadowed or outright contradicted by what is meant to be interpreted between the lines. What we say is not really what we mean most of the time, and this is something we begin to learn as children. It's not that the words we use don't matter, they do, but the way in which we use them and the context we use them in are far more indicative of our feelings and emotions. Unfortunately, for many of us, these small signs might as well be incantations for magic spells based on how subtle or convoluted they seem. One of the keys to communicating more clearly and being able to read between the lines of what people say is to understand subtext. To borrow from Cheney and Liddon's 1997 publication, Subtextual Communication, Impression Management, and Empirical Study, in the context of an office environment, subtext is the following. Subtextual communication, a covert language that strengthens or negates the spoken text, is used to influence the impressions other people have of us, and may be used to competitive advantage in numerous situations in the workplace. The subtext is more subtle than the obvious text and may be more honest in interactions between people. Fast, 1991. Subtextual communication elements are related to image and may convey positive or negative impressions related to assurance, credibility, competence, and savoir-faire through dress, manner of introducing people, body language, regard for time, use of electronic communication, and dining etiquette. Paul got a part-time job to give him extra cash as he got his university degree. He decided to work in a local electronics store because he knew the people, the area, and the product like the back of his hand. Imagine his surprise when he discovered he wasn't the big sales star he made himself out to be during the interview process. Everyone else seemed to hit their sales quotas with ease, yet there he was, stuck, barely reaching the lower end of the target. What made matters worse was the fact that other staff members had absolutely no technical knowledge, yet they surpassed Paul in sales every single month. Paul's sales were so bad that his boss called him in for a performance meeting to address the problem. Instead of pointing out where Paul went wrong, he decided to match him up with his top salesman to discover how the sales techniques differ. For the entire afternoon, Paul tagged along with the top-performing salesperson, Sam. As Paul observed, he noticed something interesting. The customers were all completely the same. The queries were all the same, and his solutions were the same, except for one small thing. Where Paul would give up or move on, Sam offered additional recommendations and moved in for the kill. He realized this when a customer was looking at a camera. The customer raised his hands and declared the product to be fine. At this point, Sam picked up a more expensive camera and walked the customer through its features. Paul wouldn't usually do that. When the customer said something was fine, he would continue focusing on closing the sale on the same camera. But to his surprise, the customer ended up buying the more expensive camera. As soon as the customer left the store, Paul asked Sam, "What made you suggest a whole new product? Isn't that just confusing the customer? I thought he said it was fine." Sam just laughed and said, "Just because the customer says it's fine doesn't mean it is. Fine is not positive. It usually means they want something more, or their expectations haven't been met. It's them asking for more options in reality." Paul was taking people's words literally and only at face value, and because of that, he was missing the real messages people were sending him. Whatever was being said was the only thing Paul was operating on, and he didn't consider that communication would occur in any other way. Sam explained that people's words were merely the tip of the iceberg in terms of what they wanted to communicate, and fine said with a flat speaking voice was as good as, "This sucks." That one simple statement made a huge change in Paul's sales as he began trying to dig beneath the words themselves and pick up on the meaning behind them. Don't be like Paul. Learn subtext to read people better and begin to truly respond to what people are trying to communicate. Communication can be divided into two categories: overt and covert. Overt is the words we say and the explicit messages we want to convey. This is when we directly tell someone that we're hungry and ask for a hamburger. Subtext is the covert type of communication. It's almost never directly said, relies on literally anything besides the direct message coming out of someone's mouth, and requires correct interpretation. Using subtext to say, "I'm hungry," would include rubbing your stomach, licking your lips, pointing out that there's a menu on a nearby table, and mentioning that your previous meal was tiny. Not everyone is going to pick up on those signs, but it is undeniable what the person wanted to convey. We routinely communicate through these indirect means and hope that it saves us the trouble of being direct. Subsequently, understanding the subtext under and surrounding people's seemingly benign statements gives you insight into their true feelings and thoughts. For example, How does the overt dialogue below differ from the subtextual covert message? Here, it's what is not said that completes the message. The subtext is that the question wasn't replied to in a convincing manner and thus is less than sincere. Suppose the answerer of the question has a history of being blunt. Am I fat? No, you're not fat. Translation: yeah, you might be a little fat. Am I fat? No, but I suppose you could maybe lose a couple of pounds. Translation: yeah, you're definitely fat now. Subtext can be delivered through vocal tone, phrasing, delivery, reference to prior experiences, knowledge of relationships, body language, gesticulation, circumstances, and even moods. It sounds abstract and confusing, but just imagine that subtext is everything we want to say besides the exact words we use. In fact, that's one of the big reasons we use it. It allows us to navigate the world through indirect and non-confrontational means. If you're great at subtext, it saves time, it's efficient, and it imparts great emotional intelligence by understanding people's ever-shifting circumstances. Subtext appears in every situation, from work and dating to social situations and family dynamics. In fact, much of dating can be said to be subtext because much of sexual tension depends on not revealing true intentions up front. If you ask someone to dinner and they tell you they're busy, they might be busy, or they might not be interested. If you ask the same person out 4 times and each time they say they're busy, then there is additional subtext for you to read. Take the context into account, and things aren't looking good for you on the romantic front. This has been Think Like a Psychologist: How to Analyze Emotions, Read Body Language and Behavior, Understand Motivations, and Decipher Intentions. Written by Patrick King, narrated by Russell Newton. Copyright 2019 by Patrick King. Production copyright by Patrick King.